the journalist Rachel Maddow, right?
Oh, yes, yes,
Miss
yeah.
Miss
The
Miss
political yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Miss Russiagator.
Yep.
Um, and anybody who is, sympathetic to the Democratic Party and who believes the hype of Russia meddling in our elections, I want to show you guys something. Take a look at this. Um, Hang on. I got to figure out how to. There we go. Okay, so this is a Time magazine article that was put out in 1996.
Mhm.
Okay, and this says Yanks to the rescue. That's I think Boris Yeltsin, who was the prime minister of Russia. And it says the secret story of how American advisors helped Yeltsin's win.
Mhm. Hmm. Hmm.
Russia meddling in our election.
Yeah.
Russia meddling in our election? Russia meddling in our election. What about United States meddling in other elections? Because
Look at our
as you can
CIA.
see here, as you can see, the United States is actually bragging about meddling in Russian elections. Your thoughts?
Oh, I have plenty on this. I mean, this is something that the U.S. has done for so long, and so often with complete impunity. Our CIA is world renowned for their ability to affect democratic elections in the most undemocratic of ways, supporting and even leading coups all around the world, particularly in the global south.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done this for decades, as we can see here, and it's no secret, and it comes as no surprise or shock to anyone paying attention to global politics. The U.S. is known around the world as the number one exporter of terrorism. We are the one of the most undemocratic and influential nations in the world and over the past century and more. And we do this by undemocratically influencing other countries' elections constantly. And we see America putting their thumb on the scales even to this day. Right now, Joe Biden is doing it right now. All right. In Haiti, all right, there is the leader in Haiti right now, Jovenel Moise, was supposed to have left office at the beginning of this year. He has decided that he will not, and Joe Biden has backed him up in that support. We saw it in Venezuela with the undemocratically named Juan Guaido, who has just suddenly tried to name himself as the de facto president of Venezuela, and with having been voted for by less than like 5% of the electorate ever. We had both Trump and Joe Biden now coming in and effectively supporting Juan Guaido in this undemocratic coup against Nicolas Maduro. And so we can see it. I mean, look at Bolivia. Look at we can talk about instance after instance. Look at what happened in Nicaragua. The under Obama. This is something that plays out constantly, where the U.S. has their thumb on the scale of elections all around the world, and then we turn around and we play victim and we say, "Oh, Russia, Russia, Russia," when the reality is that Russia had little to no influence over our election. They did a couple of memes on Twitter, essentially, and that's what they're calling influence over our election. When the United States is able to brag on one of the most popular magazine, front pages about the way that they influence elections in other countries. And we do it through cyber warfare. We do it through, straight up actual, hot wars, and we've done it through cold wars. So we use every means available to us to affect, outcomes of other countries' elections to the benefit of US empire. And so we have to recognize this as just US imperialism in action. And nothing should surprise us about this from dating back 20 years. It's happening right now, today.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Because if you look on the screen, it says the United States involvement in regime change. This is from Wikipedia. This takes 2 seconds to search on Google. Now, I want to, this is all of the interventions that the United States has been involved in for the last over 100 years, starting in the 1800s. And just to name a few, Samoa, Hawaii, Panama. This is all the countries that the United States has either attempted and successfully tried to take over, or they have tried and failed, but they have tried nonetheless. So you have Samoa, Hawaii, Honduras, Cuba, Nicaragua. It says Mexico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Russia, Japan, Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Philippines, Austria, South Korea, China, Greece, Italy, Costa Rica, Albania, Burma, China, Korea, Egypt, Iran, Cuba, Guatemala, Syria, Indonesia, Lebanon, South Vietnam, Iraq, and Cuba. By the way, we're not even to the 1960s yet. And
wouldn't it be easier to just name all the countries we haven't tried to?
That's exactly my point. If we just named the countries that we haven't tried to take over, it'll be a shorter list.
Yep.
And the mere fact that you have people claiming that, oh, Russia tried to meddle in our elections. What about what we did? Why in the hell do we have 800 military bases around the world? Why? I think
Exactly.
China has like what, 2 military bases? We have over 800. For what reason?
Exactly. And in the cost of maintaining those military bases around the world, I mean, imagine if, Russia tried to put a military base, in like Canada and Mexico and Cuba and just imagine if what the reaction of the US would be to that sort of hostility. We see that as hostility, but we don't recognize it as hostility when it's US empire operating all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And so, to anybody who's watching this who still believes that Russia was meddling in our elections, number one, even if they were, who did they learn it from?
Yeah.
The United States. That's who they learned it from.
Exactly. And I don't even think that this is like, some people will try to claim, I'm not that anyone in the comments is doing so, but some people will try to claim that this is like some sort of whataboutism argument, but it's not, because it's so disproportionate. It is not a whataboutism argument. This is literally to say, this is sort of like when people try to argue, that it's like a whataboutism when you're like, no, look at what's happening. Look at what Israel does to Palestine,
Yeah.
It's not what aboutism, because what we're talking about there is settler colonialism, and you got one force that is the occupier, one force that is the occupied. The United States has so much outsized power in the world because we are the global superpower that this is in no way a whataboutism. This is absolutely a fair critique to say, yes, look at what we do, not just in Russia, but everywhere. So great point, JB. Just great point.
Oh, Gene, I want to give some love to this comment too. Gene says there are a lot of U.S. secret bases as well. No doubt.
Yes.
It's just like, for instance, when people keep talking about the military budget for the United States, they always reference the $735 billion in military budget that we have. But here's a fact that a lot of people don't know. The nuclear arsenal that we have is not listed under the military budget, it's listed under the Department of Energy. So if you were to take the budget from the nuclear arsenal that we have and then combine it with the budget for the military, that means we're spending probably over $1 trillion on our military.
That's wild. That's wild. And you know what? That's a point that I didn't even realize, to be perfectly 100% honest, that that was included, the nuclear arsenal, under Department of Energy. But it makes perfect sense that it is. I know that they control, the Department of Energy, is, controls the nuclear our nuclear arsenal. So that makes perfect sense. And that is, just a wild fact that gets underplayed and underrated, constantly. And I think that that is significant,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that's incredible.
Yeah. So the whole notion that the United States is good, and who is it? What's her name? Oh, she's the new co-host on Rising. Emily Jasinski.
Jashinsky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Emily Jasinski. The fact that she on live TV now, let's be honest, she is a political commentator and a journalist, and she is basically regurgitating the same notion that the United States largely does good in the world, is not just a disconnect, but is immense ignorance on her part,
Absolutely.
because she bought into the propaganda. Mind you, she's part of the Federalist Society, so
Yes.
that gives you a notion, an insight on what she believes. But the fact that she's believing in the propaganda and doesn't know some of these things, like the United States has done so much more terrible atrocities around the world in comparison to what they've done that was good.
Absolutely.
And even when the United States does something good, quote unquote good, it's typically for something atrocious. So, like for instance, we're giving $3 billion, I think, per year to Israel, but
Yeah.
Israel is committing atrocities, basically genocide against Palestinians. So the good that we do is actually helping out, you know, uh, basically eradicate Palestinians,
It's a
or
fascist settler colonialism is what
yeah,
it is. Yeah.
yeah, or we're giving money to Saudi. We're sorry,
and,
we're
and,
selling
and to your
weapons to
point
Saudi
as
Arabia.
well, JB, to
Yeah,
your point
uh,
about
uh,
the extension of the military budget, that also doesn't get included in our military budget. That's included in the foreign aid budget, and that $3 billion is by and large being used to fund the military, support in Israel, and to fund U.S. military interests in that region as well. So that also gets left undercounted as well. So just to your point is, on what the true military budget is, that should be included in that as well.
well, yeah, and we can also go to the selling of arms to Saudi Arabia so that they can commit their proxy war in Yemen and start killing Yemeni people. So when you look at exactly what the United States has been doing, the reason why the world is shit, and a huge majority of a lot of the issues that's going around in the world is due to what the United States does abroad. I mean, look at what
Absolutely.
we've done to, the global south. I mean, as far as that list of the countries that we tried to take over, it is riddled with the names of countries in the global south that we had tried to take over, from Brazil to Honduras to Nicaragua to Venezuela, Colombia. We have tried, and, in some ways successful, to place puppet shadow governments within these nations. I mean,
Yes.
the latest one was Bolivia and I think Peru. So, luckily they put their middle finger up and said, "Fuck you, United States. You're not going to take us over." Thankfully, that happened, but the United States isn't going to stop. They're going to keep going and try to do it again.
Absolutely. I recently had on a wonderful voice on the left, Tamanisha John. She's a PhD candidate in international affairs, and I encourage you to have her on the JB show sometime. She's an just an exceptional mind on the left, and
Mm-hmm.
something that she points out that I think is so important in on the left for us to start to include in our narrative on the U.S. When we talk about the U.S. military budget, is to talk about it in the same way that we talk about defunding the police. I think that we need to start talking about defunding the military as well, but in the same
Yes.
sense that we talk about defunding the police. When we
Yes.
say defund the police, we're talking about not just taking away money from the police, but putting money into the resources that will combat the sort of institutional problems that lead to this increased policing in the first place, right? And so we
Mm-hmm.
talk about using it to sort of make reparations, right, to the communities that have been damaged by
Yes.
policing, right?
Yes.
And so in the same way, when we talk about defunding our military, we need to be thinking about how we are actually going to spend that money. A lot of the times the argument gets made on the left, and I think it's an unfortunate one, where we say we should defund our military in order to support and in order to fund programs here in the United States. But I think before we can ever do that, we need to first use that money. When we defund our military, we need to first use that money to make reparations to all the countries we've destroyed and damaged around the world first. All the people whose lives we've harmed with that military budget need to be restored and repaired first with that money. So taking care of and funding and paying out reparations to the Palestinians who we helped to colonize by funding Israel and by supporting Israel the way that we have, to those civilians in Yemen that we've damaged and destroyed and starved by our support for Saudi Arabia and all of their mass bombing campaign of the Yemeni people, and in the global south and all around the world. We need to start to pay out reparations. It's not just Black folks in America that are owed reparations. It's also all those disaffected communities all around the world that have been harmed by our military budget. We need to make right with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I want to give attention to Jonathan Schellberg. I completely forgot to give this shout out. Thank you for the award and contribution. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much, Jonathan Schellberg.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate that. Yep. Support JB Show. We need support for programs like this. Please support, folks.
Mm-hmm. Now we only have like a couple minutes left, but I also wanted to present this on screen. This question says, are the military interests the same as corporate or elite interests? Does the military function on behalf of the elite, or are they the elite? I would say, to answer to your first question, yes, they are.
Yeah.
Does the military function on behalf of the elite, or are they elite? Both. The answer is both. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think military members, like individual soldiers, within the military, I don't believe that those are elite people. Those are typically poor, working class people that have been forced into a situation where they're desperate. They recruit. They do a lot of their recruiting in Black and brown and poor communities where people are struggling, and they say, you know what, you're not going to get to college because we don't fund. We don't have a universal college program here in the United States. Mm-hmm. We can take care of your healthcare. We can take care of your education. And so they use that, your desperation as a poor working class person, and particularly in Black and brown communities, to recruit for the military. Mm-hmm. They also pay the starting pay for a soldier in the U.S. military is $19,000 for a private in the U.S. military. So by no means are the individuals that are functioning within the sort of, the everyday soldiers, the sort of masses, the vast majority of them, the ones that are not, I forget what the term is when you're a sort of, the generals, there's a name for it. I'm blanking on the name right now, but the sort of, those are typically the elites. The military elites are the ones that are sort of, the somebody in the comments will probably know the word for it. It's somebody that's been in the military. JB I think he was in the, but those officials that are at the higher levels, I do believe that they operate as elites, and they are part of the elite class.
Yeah, you're talking about the Joint Chiefs.
Exactly.
A lot of them,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So those, I believe, are elites, and I think that, like you said, JB, as an institution, it absolutely operates to the benefit of corporate capitalist political elites. So yes, in that sense, it absolutely, they do uphold the interest of the elite. I think that the individual members within our military typically aren't elite. They're typically poor people. They all come back from these wars with PTSD and all kinds of things, and then we just cast them aside onto the streets. We don't give them the health care they need. They're out there begging for money and homeless. And so, we have over 50,000 veterans on any given day that are homeless in this country. So I don't think that the individuals within it are necessarily elite, but I think the institution is an elite institution and operates to serve the interests of the corporate elite. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And just
definitely.
look at what happened in Bolivia. That was literally about securing lithium for batteries for Elon Musk in these electric powered vehicles, and we have to recognize that even that is to the benefit of corporate U.S. Empire and U.S. corporatism. Absolutely.
Just look at the Iraq war, the war in Afghanistan, and think oil
Oil.
and think opium.
Yep.
And that'll give you the answer that you've been looking for.